Welcome back, puppies, to Barking Dog Studio presents Giant Part 3. Right here, I'm just painting the eyes, and I'm using Elfic Flesh from the Game Color series from Vallejo. Elfic Flesh is really just an off-white, so I use it in a lot of places where I want a off-white, where I want like a creamy color. I didn't want their eyes to be too bright white. And here I'm going to be using some more game color. I'm using Goblin Green and for their irises. Now that 5/0 detail brush that you see me using there is just a cheap synthetic hair brush from, or synthetic fiber. The bristles are synthetic. It's from, there's a package of 6 brushes that I bought at Hobby Lobby for like $4.99 or something like that. It's pretty cheap, and they work really great. And it's from 2 all the way to, I think I got a, what's this finest one here? Let me look. Is a 10/0. Now on Top Knot here, when I was painting his, I ended up getting his eyes a little cross, and that's an easy fix, just go back to repaint one of the eyes. But I decided not to do that. I decided I liked kind of the crossed eye look. It kind of gave him some character, so I ended up leaving him a little not centered right. His left one's looking a little to the side, where his right one's a little more straight, front and center. Now just to dot their pupils here, I'm just using Army Painter Black. Now for their skin tones, after I did a Zenithal Prime, I just used some Game Air from Vallejo. I just used the bronze skin tone, and here I'm getting ready to use Elf skin tone and Pale Flesh. I'm going to mix them together. Well, for the mid-tone, I actually just went with a straight Elf skin tone, and then for the highlight, I mixed in Pale Flesh. But here you just see me working in the mid-tone, and that's just a straight elf tone from the Game Air. And I'm going over all the raised areas in the skin, like I'll do the wrinkles in his face. Here you see me working around his toes. I'll go over all the knuckles and joints. Anywhere, you know, the skin bends and stretches a lot, or it's raised over a joint like an ankle or a knuckle or his knee. And again, that's just me working in the mid-tone. Some of these same areas, like his ankle and his knees, will actually get the highlight of the elf tone mixed in with the Pale Flesh. Oh, little camera adjustment there. And you see I've already been working on his knees, and I've already brought those colors up, and they start to give a lot more dimension, a lot more lifelike, seeing these raised areas getting highlights. Here what you see me using is the mixture where I've mixed in the pale flesh with the elf tone. It's amazing how much those highlights really just start to bring a lot of life to the model, and not just the highlights like at his knees or his elbows, but that face especially. It just really starts to give him a lot more dimension. It's a good sculpt to work with, but I think the painting really does it. But that's why we do the hobby, right? Satisfaction of bringing these little guys to life. In retrospect, if I was going to do anything different, I would probably have their eyes looking down more, because a standard like 28 millimeter, fantasy or sci-fi model actually only comes up to like these guys' knees, maybe a little bit past their knees. So, like these giants when they're coming across, the PCs or something during a game, these giants are going to be towering over the player characters for sure. And here I'm getting ready to demonstrate a glazing technique. I'm going to be using some of the elf skin tone, and I don't show it right away, but I actually again use the pale flesh. I mix the elf tone and the pale flesh together, which is my highlight color, and then I mix in some scale color purple heat. And this is to go over those thin areas, like over knuckles, the nose. A lot of times, a lot of places where you can, the Caucasian will generally have kind of a red hue to them, because the transparency of the skin. You just see, I think some of the blood, I think, is where the flush look kind of comes from. And there I was just using a bamboo skewer to mix up my paint, and there I was just using a brush to get some water from the side of the wet palette there over on top of the parchment paper, so I can have some water to mix in. So you mix in water with the paint that you're wanting to use and thin it down to like a wash consistency, but then the trick to getting the glaze is dabbing the water off. Otherwise it will behave like a wash and it'll just run off into the recesses, and that's not what you're wanting. And here I'm just touching up Top Knot's chopped off ear. I had gone in with some plastic putty and made a little scar back behind his ear there to help it look like it was like his ear was just cut off. Here what you see me doing is I got his ears a little too red, so I've gone in with a glaze of the flesh tone, the mid-tone that I was using, and I just went over the ear. Now you can still see the red or the pink underneath it, but it's not as strong as it was. I knocked it down by doing that and got it to where I wanted it, where it still had that kind of red hue to it from the purple heat paint, but it looked more natural. It didn't look a little over the top. Okay, so now I'm getting ready to start on the tunics. I don't show the whole tunics here, and out of the two colors that I just showed, that's mahogany from Model Color, Vallejo, and then the red leather. I use the red leather to highlight the mahogany typically. Here I actually end up not using the red leather. I just went with the straight mahogany. I'm just kind of sporadic how I'm picking out patches on the tunic. And here, I'm not going to paint every single patch that color. I'm just being sporadic, a little bit symmetrical as I start to come up on the upper part of his tunic. Like if I do two patches on one side of that V going up around his chest and neck, I'll do a couple patches on the other side. Other than that, most of it's kind of random as I'm going through and I'm picking them out. And I also made sure when I did the tunic on the other guy that I did completely different patches. That way the tunics aren't identical, but I do use all the same colors. And here in this video you only see me doing the mahogany, but the other three colors that I used are, they're all from the Model Color line of Vallejo. I used German gray, which is a very close black. It's a very charcoal gray, and then I also used khaki, and I also used leather brown. And I didn't really highlight any of those. I had intentions to, but after I got done painting them all up, and I actually used some golden brown also. I used golden brown was another color that some of the patches received. But after I was done, before I highlighted it, I threw on Citadel wash. I threw on some Agrax Earthshade, and looking at it, I decided once the shade dried not to go back and highlight it. I really liked the way it looked. I didn't want to bring it up too much, so I just kind of left it there with the base color and then the Agrax Earthshade. Well, bark on, puppies. Please like, share, and subscribe.